Hi everyone and welcome to the LingQ podcast with me, Elle. If you would like to study the transcript to this podcast episode and all past podcast episodes as an English lesson, you can do so on LingQ. I will always pop the link to the lesson in the description. LingQ is an excellent way to study English. You translate words and phrases you don't know, adding them to your own personal database, and learn from content you love. And remember to like, share, follow, subscribe, whatever showing love means on the platform that you are listening on. This week I am joined by the man, the legend, LingQ co-founder and YouTube polyglot, Steve Kaufmann. Steve, how are you?
I'm fine, Elle. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good now that we are in 25-degree heat as opposed to 41-degree heat that we just previously had.
Yeah, we've had, that was extraordinary.
Yes.
Extraordinary how hot it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How?
And just as an aside, of course, some people may know that the town of Lytton in the interior set a record at 49, almost 50 degrees of heat, centigrade, whatever that is in Fahrenheit, 120 plus.
Yeah.
And then the whole town had to evacuate, and the town basically was burnt to the ground because they had this enormous forest fire. And then they showed pictures of, there's so much heat over the interior of the province that it's creating these massive and multiple lightning strikes, which of course creates more forest fires, which creates more heat. It's just a horrendous situation.
It is. It's gonna.
So
scary for the season.
you know, I was I had a few chores today. So I had to go to get some insurance office. One of the two ladies there spoke Farsi,
nice.
So I was able to practice my Farsi.
Excellent.
Then I went to the liquor store to buy some wine, and the checkout lady there spoke Farsi, so I was able to speak Farsi with her. Then I went to the supermarket, and then the checkout lady there spoke Farsi, so I spoke Farsi again.
Excellent.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And I'm reminded of that because there was a gentleman standing behind me in line, and we started chatting, and we were chatting about, we don't need to wear the masks anymore, and some people feel more comfortable wearing masks, and that's fine too. And he was from Lillooet, which is very near Lytton. And I said, how are things up there? Because they're right in they call it the eye of the storm. And he said he has a small business, 20 employees. They were all waiting to see if they would also be evacuated, and they could see the fires. But the fires didn't come their way, and apparently there was a heavy rainstorm, and that seems to have dampened things a little bit. But it was interesting. He's originally from North Vancouver, and we had a long chat. He'd moved up there, and he runs a bakery. And so I said, my wife likes making sourdough bread. And so we talked about bakery and stuff like that. So it was very nice. But here's a guy, he's right on the front lines of the whole heat wave, forest fire situation.
It's really scary. I live, so I'm in North Van. I can see the mountains from my street, and they're they're brown. A lot of the trees have been scorched, and so
Really? I hadn't seen that. So nearby us then.
Yeah, Grouse Mountain up that way.
Oh.
My husband's lived here his whole life on this street, and he said he's never seen that before. So it's kind of scary for the wildfire season.
I mean, if we get a forest fire here in Vancouver, there is no shortage of vegetation. I mean, there are so many trees everywhere. Yeah.
That's a scary thought, for sure.
I mean, there always used to be forest fires. The difference is there's a lot more people living in the forest now. But the forests always used to burn regularly. Scary.
It is.
Anyway.
So I wanted to ask you about your challenge.
Right.
Anyone who isn't aware, Steve started a 90-day challenge 30 days ago now, right? So you're a third of the way through. Anyone who doesn't...
Only 30 days? I was hoping I was further along than that.
Is it dragging, or is it tough to meet your targets?
Well, not all of our decisions are good ones, so we can get into it.
It's intense, right? A 90-day challenge is intense, for sure. For anyone who doesn't know, a 90-day challenge is 90 days of consistent study every day on LingQ, hitting your targets, so reading, listening, creating links, which are words and phrases that you don't know that you've translate and save to your database. You're also in a Streak with Steve challenge, which is meeting your daily links target, and which keeps you in a streak for 90 days. That's an intense one also. So you're being sufficiently challenged right now on Link. How is it going?
Well, I saw that Streak with Steve. Didn't fully understand what it entailed. But I thought that what I would try to do is force myself to study both Farsi and Arabic, so do two languages. Right. And set myself lower goals, like only create 13 links. In other words, look up and save 13 new words a day, initially in each language. And I think I kept that up for a while, but that's too difficult to do. I find myself wanting to spend at least 1 week on one language and then 1 week on the other language. I find it's a bit confusing to do two languages like that. Yeah. I'm committed to doing it. Otherwise, I think I would just go back to saying, work on one for 3 months, really get into it, then work on the other. Because I find that I don't slip that much. I can go back, do my mini stories again, and it'll come back to me. Right. So I find that it's a little bit confusing now to be, in one, in the other, back to the first one again. Not an ideal situation, but this depends. Some people do that. Some people study 3 languages at the same time, and they're happy doing it. I think I prefer to stay focused on one at a time. Right. That's kind of my conclusion, but I'm committed to doing this, so I'm going to continue.
Had you ever previously studied 2 languages like this? You hadn't done 2 languages in a challenge before, I know that, but...
No, I once went at 3, and I was more ambitious, and maybe I was just more... had more energy then or something, but I was trying to do 100 links a day in 3 languages, Arabic, Farsi, and Turkish.
Oh,
but when you're starting up in a language, it's so easy to create links because every lesson has a whole bunch of unknown words in it. But now in those languages, I've been at it so long that I have a lot of yellow sort of saved links, words that I have looked up, but I don't yet know. So, if you just want to crank up the number of new links, you just go into new material, and if the page is full of blue unknown words, you'll very quickly reach your goal. But now, even if I bring in new material in Farsi or Arabic, there aren't that many blue words. But it doesn't mean that I know the yellow words. I don't know them very often. I haven't seen them often enough to know them. I do have the sense that certainly I understand a lot better than I did before. And so in order to create those 13 links a day, I have to go out and get new material every day. Which, again, it's easier in Farsi because Sahra, who's our collaborator in Iran, is constantly creating good content for me. Iranian filmmakers, Iranian food, Iranian history. So that part of it is easy. Yeah. The Arabic is a little more difficult. Nice. But I've even started branching off into Egyptian Arabic and because the Arabic world is so different. So if I find a TED talk in Levantine Arabic, then I want to try to understand that and look up the words there. My tutor is from Cairo, and we've been going through some Egyptian Arabic texts. And so I'm just playing around. Like I'm not going to write a test in any of this stuff. So I'm just I'm sort of exploring and enjoying. And the challenge is not, it's not what motivates me. What motivates me is my interest in what I'm listening to and reading. Right. But I know that for many people, these challenges become a major motivator. People don't have that much time, and they need that extra, basically, nudge to make sure they do something every day. And it's so important to do something every day. So I think it's a good idea to have these challenges, but I'm kind of not living up to my commitments.
Okay. Well, thank you for being so honest with us. That's great.
Yeah.
Are you speaking? You are speaking in the languages too, as part of the challenge, or just as part of your weekly study for Persian and?
Yeah, I've so I'll have say maybe 3 sessions in Farsi with Sahra, and then 3 sessions with Mohammed in Egyptian. Fortunately, I really enjoy my time with both of them because they're very nice. They just keep me going. I don't have to worry about what we're going to talk about. I think we have a good rapport, so it's just like sitting down with a friend and speaking. So, and then I get a report back with my mistakes and a recording, and So the whole thing works very well. But 3 a week is enough because I have to fit this in with all of the other things commitments that I might have, you know.
Right, right. And so so then Sahra and, is it Mohammed, your,
Mohammed, yeah.
They,
Mohammed in Cairo and Sahra, she's in northern Iran.
okay. And so they prepare, do they give you reading or talk to you about things they know that you've read? How do those?
No.
They just-
If I want to, then I can. But normally we just show up. They're not prepared. I'm not prepared.
Great.
Because we're venturing into Egyptian Arabic, so with Mohammed, we did some reading of the mini stories in Egyptian Arabic. I found also in our library at LingQ a series of interviews with people in Egyptian Arabic. And because these are not scripted, they're sort of, it's more natural, people using the equivalent of, like I mean, so you got a lot of this sort of filler word stuff. So it's very conversational sort of Egyptian Arabic. And I'm reading through this with Mohammed, and typically we'll have maybe even half of the time will be spent reading and then half of the time speaking. I think my Farsi is better than my Arabic now. It used to be the other way around. And that's because Farsi is just so much easier.
Oh, okay.
Just so much easier.
Okay.
And it doesn't have this complication of different forms of I mean, there may be different forms of Farsi, but basically there's 2 forms of Farsi. There's a more formal form, which is sort of the written form, and then the form that people use to speak. Not very different, essentially the same words, some different endings, some slightly different vowels. Is not a big deal. So whereas with Arabic, Egyptian, Gulf Arabic, Lebanese Arabic, Moroccan Arabic, they're all different.
Okay. And so you mentioned that you were out today and you spoke to 3 people in Farsi. How are you received when you start chatting to them in Farsi?
You know what? The different sort of national groups react differently. Like if you were to generalize, the Farsi speakers are so pleased when they hear you speak Farsi, and they're so encouraging and accommodating, and it's funny, I was out swimming in the ocean the other night, and there was a couple swimming. They sort of had some kind of, I don't know, small boat or inflatable boat, and they were both in the water and splashing around. And they were a couple in their 50s or early 60s, and I heard them speaking Farsi. So I spoke to them in Farsi. Now you can imagine their surprise. They're swimming here in West Van, and all of a sudden some old geezer speaks to them in Farsi. And so they reply, are you speaking Farsi? Yeah, guess what? I'm speaking Farsi. So we had a bit of a chat. But generally, I mean, the one lady at the supermarket, I've spoken to her before, she's always very nice. She speaks to me in Farsi. Sometimes the inclination is for them to come back in English, to prove, like, well, I've been in Canada for 10 years, so I speak English very well, So they need to demonstrate that, But this lady at the supermarket, she's always very nice. Oh, I haven't seen you in a while. How are you? And we went back and forth in Farsi. You got to be careful because there's a lineup at the checkout. I can't just stand there and talk to her while people are waiting to pay for their groceries. But yeah, if I see their name, hear in their accent, I know you're not supposed to do this, but if I figure that they're Farsi speakers, I say, do you speak Farsi? And they normally react very positively.
I don't know that you're not supposed to do that. I don't think that's...
Well, there's this whole idea, especially so the people who seem to be the most sensitive sometimes are people who are Asian. So if a person looks Asian, in fact, you can't assume that they speak an Asian language, right?
I see.
In other words, if you have someone who has a Polish name, like in Canada now, we have people from all over, right? So you can find Italian names, Polish names, German names, Dutch names, whatever. You can't assume that they speak that language. Like my name is Kaufmann. People can't call Steve Kaufmann. Yeah, du bist Deutsch. Yeah, they can't. That's not on. So, and the Asians are particularly, or some of them are a little sensitive. Like I'm Canadian. Just because I look Asian, you can't assume that I can't speak English.
Okay.
So you have to be very careful. So you got to pick. You got to sense if this person. You can't sort of imply that they can't speak English. So I normally will say. You're not even, according to the real diehards, you're not even supposed to have any curiosity about where this person is originally from, even though they look non-Caucasian. That's a no-no. Okay, people have no difficulty asking me if I'm German just by looking at my name, and it doesn't bother me in the slightest. I'm not German, but they can ask me because they're curious. Oh, you got. It's like. Anyway, so you just have to be a little bit aware of that. So I typically say, do you speak an Asian language? It's still a little bit dicey because just because I look Asian, why should I have to speak an Asian language? And I agree with that. Like a person who's been here for 3-4 generations, no more likely to speak an Asian language than someone who has a Polish name is expected to speak Polish, or who has a Dutch name is expected to speak Dutch.
Fair enough.
So I agree with them, but I nevertheless enjoy speaking these languages, and most of them react quite pleasantly. I haven't had any negative reactions.
Good. That's good.
But it sometimes becomes an issue. You know, the sort of politically correct people say you shouldn't do that.
So,
Yeah.
Setting out 30 days ago on these challenges, 90-day challenge in Arabic and in Persian, did you have any goals, anything you wanted to have achieved by the end in terms of not necessarily, known words or hours of listening, but content that you would then be able to approach maybe movies or something?
Well, yeah, I find that my goals have changed. When I started out, I said I want to be able to understand, like a large part of my diet content has been these political podcasts, which typically I extract the MP3 file, convert that to text on an automatic transcription website, bring it into LingQ, and study it. So I said I want to get to where I can really understand these podcasts better. But I found that my motivation to do that has declined because they're kind of boring after a while. It's always the same. The different groups in Yemen fighting each other in Libya or whatever. I just get tired of it all. So with Arabic, I've decided, no, I'd rather get to where I can understand Egyptian movies. So then I said, well, then I better learn more Egyptian Arabic because I don't understand them very well. And there are Egyptian movies and series on Netflix. So I decided with Arabic, I want to start moving more into the spoken Arabic. With the Farsi, I had been basically following the diet that Sahra fed me. So it was the history of Iran, it was food of Iran, it was minority peoples in Iran, and all this stuff, which I found very interesting, so that was great. And all of a sudden she sends me these descriptions of famous Iranian film directors. More than a few of them have won international acclaim, even in the last 10 years or so. Oscars, awards at the Cannes Film Festival, Berlin Film Festival, and so forth. So she sends these through. The way she does, she talks about a certain film director, and then she has these circling questions about that same film director. And then she sends me a link to that movie or a movie by that director on YouTube. So I'm able to watch it. So all of that has been very interesting. I tried to extract the MP3 file and transcribe it, but audio from a movie is a bit disappointing as language learning content because there's so much car noise, doors slamming, birds chirping. Yes. It's not dense language. So I don't do that. I just whatever she sends me, I read it and I try to learn about the movie, the film director, and then I watch the movie a while, and I've enjoyed that. So in a way, I've moved more in the direction of enjoying movies in both Arabic, heavy to Egyptian Arabic, and in Farsi.
Excellent.
And trying to talk 2-3 times a week with both Mohammed and Sahra.
Excellent. And you watched a movie, is it Asma? You recently mentioned in one of your videos.
The Asma, that was the Egyptian movie. It was a very interesting movie, actually. Yeah. Egyptian movie. It's sort of it's about the stigma of AIDS in Egypt, about and I would say even the Iranian movies, this whole honor that the men seem to feel, that basically and an important component of their honor is being able to tell women what to do. So these are themes that come up in those movies.
Okay. I'll have to. I'm always looking for movie recommendations. So if you say that's good, I'll check that out.
Yeah, it's. I'm trying to hear the Arabic. I mean, it is to get a bit of an insight into Egyptian society. I recommend Asma.
Asma.
Definitely.
Okay.
And the same with the Iranian movies. The Separation.
Okay.
It was quite an interesting movie.
The Separation.
Very interesting. It won some awards as an Iranian movie.
Is that? I think I've seen that one. Is it about the mother who? Her children don't know who she is. She was.
No.
Okay, no, I'm thinking of something else.
No. It's about a couple in Iran, and they have a daughter, and they were preparing to leave Iran to emigrate, and the wife was very keen on doing that, but then the husband decided he wouldn't go because his father now has Alzheimer's and can't look after himself, and so then she wants to divorce, and then it gets very complicated. So I won't get into the whole plot, but it's quite good, and it's apparently quite a psychological study on Iranians. And the one thing that comes through when you watch Iranian movies, there's another one called Ellie as well, is that while there's this subsense of the sort of, male dominant, honor and stuff, and yet, at least on the surface, the Iranians, they live very much like we do. They're very modern, European, North American. We have this image that they all wander around, the women are shrouded in black and very backward and stuff. And no, it's not. I mean, there's social differences in Iran, like everywhere, but maybe more marked over there. And but there's a middle class that lives, like Europeans. So and that comes through in these movies.
Excellent. The Separation. Okay, I'll check that out too. I was thinking of a completely different movie. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Steve, you have a mere 60 days left in your 90-day challenge.
I know.
I wish you the best of luck, and
thank you.
And I think it's amazing to me. You're speaking 3 times a week. So you alternate then. I assume you spend 1 week on Arabic, 1 week on Persian. So you.
1 week on each,
speak to Mohammed.
But you have to be flexible. Mohammed told me that he had going to be without his internet for a week or so. So then I went 2 weeks on Farsi, and now he's back up and running again. So I'm spending more time with him. To be honest, I don't follow my streak that closely. It's just that I feel a commitment. Right. I feel that I have an obligation to work on those languages, which is no big deal because I enjoy doing it. But I made this commitment to do both. At the end of my 90 days, I'm going to do just Farsi. Because Farsi is the biggest opportunity here in Vancouver to use the language. Although, internationally, of course, there are far more Arabic speakers than Farsi speakers.
That's good to...
I enjoy them both. I enjoy them.
It's nice, though, I'm sure, to be able to speak to people, as you say, at the supermarket and wherever you are. Because,
Yep.
Well, anyone who's interested in joining a challenge, I will pop the link in the description to the 90-day challenge, the streak with Steve as well. Thank you so much for joining me, Steve. It's been great as always.
I should say too, Elle, I've watched your interviews with your various guests. I think they're excellent.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely excellent. Very interesting. And of course, not only are they interesting, but I think they're an opportunity for people to work on their English because they're all lessons at LingQ.
They are.
And you normally have guests on there who speak very clearly. You speak clearly. So I think they're excellent, interesting and excellent learning material of a sort of an intermediate level.
Yes.
They're not overly difficult.
Yes.
So I think it meets a need, a real need. Excellent.
So, well, thank you so much. And as you mentioned, I will always pop the link to the transcript or this video as a lesson in the description. And there's a full course of all past interviews and episodes there for anyone who's learning English. So thank you so much, Steve. And like I said, best of luck.
I enjoyed it.
Best of luck with your challenges.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.